A very warm welcome to all of you on News9 Mediaverse. And you are watching To The Point, and we will talk about the Manipur mass burial controversy. ITLF has announced a mass burial which the Meteis group in the valley opposed. The Manipur High Court stepped in and instructed the parties to maintain status quo ante at the site where the Kuki Zo community wanted to organize the burial. The court asked them to make an amicable solution. During the day, people wanted to go to Churachandpur, but it was stopped and tear gas shells were used. Firing happened. Our reporters were there. So let me come to the point without wasting your time and my time, and let me ask this to Brijesh Pandey. Boss, what's happening?
I think, we discussed this issue yesterday and today going by... The firing and overall incident which happened is a clear reminder that, we may talk anything, but the fact of the matter remains that the deep distrust, the deep divide continues and no ethnicity is willing to concede an inch. Today, they have taken a decision post the intervention of the court, but how long this peace or the court-administered peace will continue is open to guess. I think this situation has to come where the court either has to take a decision this way or that way. Otherwise, this scenario will again happen and violence will happen again. If you look at these visuals, Kartikeya, I mean, it's a fairly indicative visuals of what exactly is happening on the ground. Lobbing of tear gas shells, firing which is happening, and our correspondent was right there in the middle of it. He was right there in the middle of it because yesterday we discussed the Kokomi has opposed this ITLF.
Okay, let me play out those graphics. Please play out those graphics so that the people can read. The point of views of the Meteis community, the point of view of the Kuki community, and the result of what has happened in entire Manipur. The situation in the valley is tense. Curfew has been reimposed in the east and west Imphal. Only journalists and essential services are allowed. 17 people have been injured. Essential services exempted from the curfew, which is doctors, food, medical services, media coverage. But apart from that, no civilian movement has been allowed. But then, Meteis groups fear land encroachment by Kukis. That's what Meteis are saying. Meteis also are saying that there are foreign fighters there. They need to be identified and their citizenship needs to be confirmed. Now, that is not acceptable to the Kuki community. The Kuki community has other point of view. The ITLF has taken out a press release. In the ITLF press release, a different dimension of the conflict comes. It says, first of all, separate administration. Then it says legalization of the burial site in Boijang. It is, I think, South Boijang. And Meteis forces are not to be deployed in the hills. That is part of the demand. And they also say that those Kuki bodies in Imphal should be brought back to Lamka. They should be brought back from Lamka. And tribal jailmates to be transferred out of the valley. Your first response on what has happened in mass burial, I mean to say, this is the least that was expected. You had a warlike situation on an issue of burying dead bodies.
Exactly. I mean, this is really a surprising news, which is just very fresh violence which is occurring, and we see the Mera Paivis and the rapid forces. They were at loggerhead with each other, stone pelting. A very disturbing scene. You can see the violence happening at that buffer zone. But the whole issue of regarding burial of the dead bodies, and which I feel that the dead, they deserve that respect, and it should not be politicized over, the burial site. Okay, I understand because of the kind of deep-seated hatred, and then which is coming from, the fight for land and basically for land. So it is alleged that the Kuki Zo are trying to, come to that.
The charge is, Dr. Guite, that the Kuki Zo community are trying to encroach on the Meteis land. Is it correct?
Exactly. Yeah, the charge is that, but the High Court has, asked the ITLF to, postpone the burial, and in the meantime, they may seek, because it's a land of the government, so which belongs to the sericulture department, according to the media reports and according to report from Ground Zero. So it's a buffer zone, and the it was felt that the burial could create a negative reactive response from the neighboring district, which we see is happening. So now the burial is postponed, and in the meantime, the ITLF is also pressing that, okay, so we will be postponing, but we will be having the condolence. So the condolence was done. And meantime, the rumors, I would say, spreading that, there is a plan to take out the dead bodies from the Regional Institute of Medical Sciences. It's lying in the morgue for the past 3 months. And there is a plan to take out those things from those grounds. So there was protest even in front of blockage, in front of the RIMS hospital. So this kind of, rapid spread of either, would say, rumors or maybe that miscommunication. So when the law and order situation is not properly controlled by the Manipur government. So this is what is bound to happen. But at the same time, it's important to note where the violence is happening,
Dr.
So
Guite, is it really possible? Yeah. Is it really possible? These are the latest visuals which are coming from Manipur. Latest visual. Dr. Guite, is it really possible that, even forces can be deployed on the ethnicity? ITLF is demanding that on Meteis should not be allowed to patrol the hilly areas. Which state is going to accept that, Dr. Guite?
I mean, that's what the demand which they are pushing it, because they don't feel safe. There is no trust on the state forces, right? They, in court, the Meteis state forces. So the demands like on legalization of the proposed burial site, and then the release of the Kuki Zo bodies, which are still lying in the morgue of hospital in Imphal, and the withdrawal of all the Meteis state forces, because there is that trust deficit. You can't trust. You entering the Meteis state forces into the hill district. So those things are actually, there are also news that rumors, I don't know, that the state forces are coming into the hills wearing the uniform of the Assam Rifles. So there is a strong, threat which they get from the state forces, which we can also connect with the kind of violence which has been unfolded since 3rd May. And then, so there is total fear of the state forces.
A very warm welcome to you, Hasina. How are you? Thank you for making time. What is this happening in Churachandpur, I mean to say, do you think that in 5 days this position can come to a rest? Because such wide positions have been taken, such different and non-aligned positions have been taken. They are saying that this cannot go on, you confirm, because they are foreign fighters. The other party is saying that, we want even the jailmates from Imphal to be sent back.
It's a complete segregation.
I mean to say, within a hotspot, a sort of another hotspot has emerged, a micro hotspot. And what is most disturbing is, it's about burial, I mean to say, the whole thing is about dignity to the body. I mean, how long can you keep these bodies out there? Can you please unmute yourself?
The Kartikeya, I mean, this is something which is, every day, the situation is escalating and is becoming so much, a divide, and the humanness, the human rights, or the understanding of human dignity is getting lost every day. And that is something impractical, where how can civilians or communities actually demand something such as burial, site as, you're not even giving the body to be, to be buried. That is something impractical and inhuman. And I think it's time that the people, whatever situation has evolved in the last 2 months, there are parameters of humanness that we need to look within.
Okay.
We need to understand. We need to get the larger perspective of the situation, rather than going into this huge divide, which is actually not going to bring any kind of reconciliation of understanding the reality of what needs to be done.
What is really, what is really, I think I'm very casually using the word disturbing. what is really strange is it was because of the Manipur High Court. If they wouldn't have said that status quo ante should be there, things would have been really out of control. What happened? What is happening in Churachandpur? I mean to say, why can't people bury their dead?
Of course, they can bury their dead, but the manner in which it has been handled is the issue. The land where they choose to bury the land, that is the issue. They have chosen a land which is actually state land and which they received a notice earlier last year for eviction. So, and this land actually is associated with, folklore of Meteis. This is a very sacred land in our history. So, utilizing this for burial site, mass burial site is not acceptable for the Meteis for this reason also. Also, Kartikeya, just imagine if you want to use a land for burial, there should be a process. There should be a permission process, right? You can't just all of a sudden decide this spot is going to be used for mass burial, and it is state land. How do you do that? I mean, one day suddenly because you are scheduled tribes, you have control over the forest land. That is the assumption that the Kuki community is making. No, there is a procedure for this and they have not followed that. That's why people are protesting against it. And there is a significance in the, history of Meteis. This land is sacred to them. That's why they're protecting it. There's a reason.
Geetarani ji, you are saying that it is part of the sacred groove or sort of a sacred land where burial was being organized?
Yes. It's actually Moirang Parba. There's a history, part of the history of Meteis. Kharbhih story is there. If we can, that is too elaborate for me to explain right now.
No, why not? Please, it is education. It is an education, Geetarani ji. I'm joined by Dr. Guite also. You must, both sides of the story should come. It is to the point. Please explain to us.
So there is this folklore Moirang Parba where we have this heroine Kharbhih and Soigi story, okay? In this, a wild captured and in this site, so this particular site was mentioned in that story and we, since ancient times, have been associating this story with this land. So we cannot under any circumstances have this land as a mass burial site.
So then what is the demand of the Meiteis community, Geetarani ji? What exactly should be done? What should be the solution, Geetarani ji?
Solution will be to identify a different spot for the mass burial. If they follow the procedure, get the permission for that, we have no issue. We also, Meiteis, we respect our dates, we follow all the ceremony and we have, do death of cremation and everything. We respect that, but the process in which the dead bodies have been radicalized, used for their own political purpose to gain control over this particular area which was disputed earlier, this is not acceptable. There is a procedure that they have to follow.
Geetarani ji, see, Brijesh this side, I want to understand what is the bigger problem. Is the identification of the foreign militants the bigger problem or just the site of the burial and you are all right with it?
See, bigger problem immediately right now is prevention of this mass burial at this particular site. Because this they are going to do immediately. And anyway, court has given, High Court order has given status quo order. So for now, this is, protected. But if they insist on using this site, that will be an issue. Because as I said, there is a connection with our history. And this is a sacred place for us. So alternative land can be arranged. They cannot insist we want only this land. So this is the immediate issue right now because this is happening today they are demanding. So and after few days of the court order, next I think 9th August, so this issue will come up. Yes, illegal immigrants entry and militants entering from Myanmar, that is also an issue, ongoing issue. Identification of the body should be done before they are buried. And learned solicitors.
Geetarani ji, how can that happen? I just wanted to know here. Can you just please tell me how do you get to identify the bodies? First of all, it will take time, and secondly, you have the 5-day period. So how does it happen? I was having a conversation with Brijesh. आज सुबह हम बैठे इसी पे बात कर रहे थे. How does that happen, Geetarani ji? How do you solve it in next, let's say, 150 hours? Because that's the time you have, or that's the time which people perceive to have?
See, Kartikeya, I think identification of the bodies is very important because this has become an issue. And suddenly they wanting to bury it, it creates like, suspicion in the minds of people. Suddenly, after Solicitor General gave a statement to the Supreme Court, this step has been taken out. So I think however much time has to be taken, that is for the authority, the concerned, medical people to be, ask their opinion. As of I cannot say how much time can be taken, of course, but these dead bodies have been lying there for quite some time, right? So burial has to be after identification this much. I think it's clear. How much time is to be taken is for the authority to decide, and if necessary, they can take permission from the court for how much time they're going to take.
Okay, Geetarani ji, please stay with me. Please stay with me. Dr. Guite is also with us. She's a professor. She teaches. Dr. Guite?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, Dr. Guite, would you like to respond to what Geetarani ji was saying in context of the sacredness of the place, in context of the burial site?
And also, if I may add one more point, Dr. Guite, is like whether any permission was taken or not, as is one of the allegations.
Correct.
See, regarding the historical narratives, I mean, this has also been one of the contestation between these two groups of why the violence has erupted. And I would say history is something on accounts of different people, so that the collective narratives when it comes to history of what is the history of the Meteis, what is the history of, or let's say collectively the history of Manipur as a political administration, that is something which is still being debated. So but now in the present context, if we see at the official record, it is clearly saying it's S. Bolzang village, which is coming under the hill district, and then in that village who are residing, the Kuki Zo tribes, they are residing there. So it is not something that the Kuki Zo people are claiming or saying that like because of this violence, or trying to say that this is the border that we draw and this is where we are claiming our land, so that's why we are going to the burial site, we choose that site. So I don't think that is something which is intentional on the Kuki Zo people, because as per the official records and as per the settlement, it is the Kuki Zo who are settling there, right? And secondly, what was the second point?
Brijesh, they're saying that no permission was taken from the authorities and it was decided all of a sudden. That is also one of the key grounds.
Okay, decide that exactly. I don't have any concrete information on that.
Fair enough, Dr. Guite, fair enough. Geetarani ji, the Kokumi also says that narco-terrorists cannot be buried at the sericulture firm. It's an allegation. How do you know that the people who died are narco-terrorists, How does court take that into cognizance, There is no fact check there.
Yeah, so this is the allegation of the Meteis, because we have grounds of suspicion that there are militants coming from outside. So this has to be ascertained. That's why I was saying identification of the dead bodies is very important. And however much time is required, already they were lying there in the fridge of the hospital for quite some time, for so many days. So few more days doesn't matter, but it has to be cleared. They cannot just bury without clearing this issue, whether they were actually citizens of Manipur or outsiders from Myanmar or wherever they have come. So this has to be ascertained. They cannot be, and for choosing this particular area, these villages, they were given eviction notice. It's right, Kukis are claiming this to be their land, which it is contested by the state government and found that they are not liable to stay there, and they're given eviction notice.
But Geetarani ji, it is so surprising. ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे it's the High Court and Supreme Court which are working overtime. Something which lies in the political remit, the poor courts have to, get into it. In Delhi, you have the Supreme Court, trying to shake the moral conscience of people that, boss, what happened? This cannot be done. And it is a High Court which is, trying to resolve a civic problem, which should be done by the politicians. It's like we are burdening our higher judiciary. ये तो काम नहीं है सुप्रीम कोर्ट का, हाई कोर्ट का. जो काम पॉलिटिशियंस का है, हमारे कोर्ट्स कर रहे हैं, हमारे जजेस कर रहे हैं बैठ के.